Good evening, everybody. Hi. So my name's Margie, and I'll be giving a teaching this evening. So tonight, I thought I would teach on Bodhicitta, something I haven't taught on before. So Bodhicitta is a mind state that's unique to Mahayana Buddhism. And Tibetan Buddhism is Mahayana. They follow the Mahayana tradition. And so bodhicitta, the definition is the wish to become enlightened. So you generate a wish to become enlightened for the benefit of all sentient beings. So it's really the cornerstone of Mahayana Buddhism, and it's the real motivation into becoming onto the path of enlightenment, and it takes you through the path to enlightenment. So this is a very profound motivation and wish. So it starts off as a wish, and it becomes the motivation along your spiritual journey. So in that way, it's not an ordinary state of mind. We all have ordinary states of mind that don't need a lot of cultivation. They just seem to arise, within us. But bodhicitta is something that really needs to be cultivated because it goes against our normal grain. It goes against how we usually think and act in the world. So, as I said, the motivation to become enlightenment is not driven by seeking your own benefit or your own benefit alone, but you wish to free. So the benefit for yourself is that your wish is to free yourself from suffering, but also the wish to free yourself from suffering so you can help free all other beings from suffering. And it's sort of likened to, you can think of it as like a mother. If a mother or a father has a love for their child, they will do anything to free that child from suffering. It's not enough that they just don't suffer, they also want their child not to suffer. So in that way we can relate to, from an ordinary point of view, we can relate to bodhicitta from that point of view. Parents, it's not enough not to just suffer yourself. If your child's left suffering immensely, then you're not happy. It's not a natural state. You would actually rather yourself suffer if that meant your child was free from suffering. So really that is what bodhicitta is. That's very much the same mind of bodhicitta, but instead of just having it for your child or your best friend or your partner or your mother, your own mother or your own family, you extend that to all sentient beings, including animals and insects and all beings. So from that point of view you can see that it's very powerful state of mind that is built on love and compassion. And again, just as a mother's wish to not see her child suffer and would rather see themselves suffer than have to see their child suffer, that is out of love and out of the compassion for that child. That is a real selfless act of love and compassion when you feel that kind of, you're moved to that extent, that you can't be happy if your child's suffering. So in the same way, there's the same mindset, the same idea that if another being, even if you don't know that being intimately, just knowing that they're suffering makes you feel that you can't be happy unless you can also free them from that suffering. So in that way it is a very expansive state of mind, in that you can imagine the amount of love and compassion that you would need to have in your mind to extend it not just beyond yourself or your loved ones, but to all beings. So it is a very, very powerful state of mind. So in Buddhism you have to understand this state of mind and to want to cultivate this state of mind, you have to be able to reach the point, you have to be able to at least analytically or logically see that all of your suffering and unhappiness comes from the opposite of thinking in that way. It comes from your own self-cherishing. So our very egocentric mind states, that really selfish, that very selfish egocentric mind state that just thinks of me, and gets very agitated and very attached and quick to anger and negative mind states, that's the totally opposite to a bodhicitta point of view. And it is actually that putting yourself above all others, because that's what an egocentric mind does. It elevates oneself and it's happy to maybe trample on or harm others in order to elevate oneself for one's own gain. So you have to come to a point of view to even understand bodhicitta or appreciate its power and how it can benefit you, is by really understanding that that very egocentric mind state is what's harming you, is what's causing you harm. And it's not only causing you harm, it then causes you to act out harm, because you become jealous and angry and you become very selfish and self-centered and self-serving. And so then what you say to others and how you act towards others becomes from this motivation of a selfish and attached and angry and full of pride and jealousy. So naturally, if you're acting from that mental state, you're going to be harming others. So, that's what you have to, if you can see that, then you've got a chance of understanding how bodhicitta can be the opposite. So, and that's the point of bodhicitta then, that's really the understanding that all of your true happiness comes from benefiting others. Because the only way to really benefit others is if you have love and compassion in your mind for others, for yourself also, but then from a mental state of love and compassion, then you are naturally open and loving and compassionate to others. You don't harm them because you're not coming from this very selfish, self-centered, egocentric point of view. You're coming from a very open mind that's full of love and compassion that naturally is of benefit to others, because that's your motivation, is to be of benefit. So that's kind of bodhicitta and how it functions to actually bring you happiness, even though your focus is actually on bringing others happiness. So it is this idea that really seeing that self-cherishing, as I said before, is that state of mind that is the enemy. It is our own enemy. It's the enemy of ourselves and it's the enemy of others. And because it is perpetuating these delusional states within our mind, the delusions that are causing us to make others unhappy, and then we come into conflict, and then we become very lonely because, we've upset a lot of our relationships, and because we didn't care for the people we were having close to, we were harming them. And so that experience of pain and rejection, of being overreactive, of being emotionally reactive or emotionally not so balanced, is because we're very much holding on, very much attached, very much over-concerned with ego. So, and that's when the self becomes very unhealthy. It's too much concern, too much holding tight, too much self-cherishing, which is the basis of the mind state of self-grasping. So we cherish that ego sense. So we really want to relax that sense of ego self-grasping. So I thought we could just pause for a little bit here, and with Buddhism, it's a logical progression. You have to be able to understand it for yourself through your own experience. So your own what you're trying to do is influence your own mental states. So we'll just pause, and I just want people to reflect and think about your own, if you can relate to what I'm saying, think about your own self-cherishing mind, and see, can you see, reflect in your past and see where that might have caused you suffering by acting out a very selfish or self-centered point of view, can you just reflect for a while and see how that might have caused you suffering? Or see how any relationships with people that might be not working well for you at the moment, or people who are annoying you in your life at the moment. They're always there. Just reflect on where's your ego in that picture. Is it partly driven by your need of your ego to be recognised, to be praised, to control? So what's your intent when there's friction? And see if you can notice that there's a self-cherishing, there's very much a strong I want, I need within that relationship. That also, there's also two sides, I'm not saying that, but just reflect on your side. So we can hopefully, through that reflection, we can see that a lot of the causes of our trouble is really when we do act from a very selfish or self-righteous point of view. And so if we can see that, then we can also then contemplate on, well, what are the advantages of changing that point of view where we can cherish others? What would it mean if I then... I mean, we're always going to have, we have this self-preservation, and we do have a self, but how about if I relax that a little bit and start to think of others in a broader sense? And so, what does that mean, to cherish others? And again, that from your loved ones, that's going to be different from if you think of the broader point of view of all sentient beings. And even from that broadest point of view from all sentient beings, of course we can't help all sentient beings in our current state. But even changing our mindset towards them, being a bit open and curious about thinking of them in a different way, thinking of them through a love and compassion point of view. The motivation comes that you want to benefit others, and that benefit makes you think, well, then I don't want to harm others. And then that comes to this idea of this wanting to do ethical, live by a more ethical standards, that you don't want to harm others, that you stopping killing insects, even that point of view, that idea of non-harming, which is also a foundation of Buddhism. This idea of, even from a mindset, if you have a mindset of non-harming, you're going to be less threatening to people, because your mind isn't, again, egocentric, because to harm is that from that very egocentric point of view. So this idea of then wanting to do things that don't cause others harm, and that's when this idea within Buddhism of ethics and morality come into it, where we practice generosity, where we practice loving kindness, where we practice, not stealing and all of those things. We abandon our anger, and we wish to abandon our anger. And then the mind naturally arises that you do want to develop more love and compassion. So even though I can't actually help all beings, if my mind is imbued with the wish to help all beings, even that is helping all beings. Because then I can't act in ways that are harmful, because I'm not motivated by harm. So I can be much more pleasant, much more open, and you have a lighter footprint on the earth. You're not sort of wound up in sort of greed and selfishness and things like that. And we can develop these thoughts as well, because it is a progression of developing our minds. And the idea of bodhicitta, in a way that it's kind of this idea that when you think of others, whoever they are, even strangers, if you think of others, that every happiness that you have and experience in your life is dependent on other. And again, you can reflect on what that means. You can't think of one thing in your life that's brought you happiness that did not depend on another person to enable that to happen. And the obvious one is your parent who bore you, your parents, you know, who fed you, who clothed you, had to go to school and someone educated you. The food we eat is being prepared and made by someone. Any joy or laughter or friendship has come through an exchange from other. And animals give us great joy. So if we're not an island, you know, if we were just sitting by ourselves, there wouldn't be that joy and all of the comforts and all of the relationships and all of the love that we have. So even love itself is dependent upon other. So again, that's where you can reflect on that idea that all of our happiness comes from others. So the cause of enlightenment is bodhicitta, to become a Buddha. And then bodhicitta is dependent. To become a Buddha, you need to rely on others. You know, so, and develop the compassion and love for others. So in a way, others are creating your ability to become a Buddha. So again, it's almost like a selfish, His Holiness says compassion is quite selfish in a way, because if we develop love and compassion, we are the ones who benefit the most. Our mind is the mind that becomes calmer and open and full of love and compassion, and less ego grasping and cherishing, less drama, less mental afflictions, less discursive thoughts, less jealousy, less hatred, less anger, lashing out. Where love and compassion, if I had love and compassion in my mind, if you have that in your mind, then you don't feel so impelled to harm. So in that way, you can see how then you benefit from wanting to benefit others. You are the greatest one who benefits from that, which is kind of ironic, but that's, again, worth thinking about. So they're very, very powerful kind of notions, and again, it is from the Buddhist point of view, they're called lojong, so mind training, to develop these sort of mental states. Again, it's not our go-to mental state. Our go-to mental state is, what about me? I want, I need, I'm wanting to obtain. This is our normal state. That person said something, about me. We're always reacting from that point of view. So to be able to develop more spiritual, and that's what it is, mental states, we really do need to train in it. We need to understand it, we need to analyse, and then we need to contemplate, well, that's the analytical part of it, and then we need to meditate and practice it. So it's a lot of practice. Again, these are very advanced. Bodhicitta itself is a very advanced mental state. So it's just even having this notion, trying to understand it and trying to shift that notion in your mind, just letting go, loosening that ego self-cherishing, and meditating, doing meditations. And we'll do one today where we do add a bodhicitta aspect to it, starting to train our minds to open up to it. So another part of establishing bodhicitta, so it's the basis of bodhicitta, as I said, is love and compassion. So through developing love and compassion, your mind is in a mental state where you benefit others. And then you even wish your spiritual path is that dedication to others, service to others. It's altruistic. So the basis of how we are able to train our mind to get to that point of thinking of others, so not just ourselves and our immediate family, but to the broader sense of others, is the mind of equanimity. So with Buddhism, we're dealing with our mental states. We're cultivating minds, the mind of love, the mind of compassion, as opposed of living in our ordinary state with our minds of delusions, our delusional minds, anger, jealousy, pride, attachment. So the basis to do that, so you use a basis, so your mind goes from very heavy egocentric kind of a mind, and you want to develop a mind of love and compassion. So you prepare your mind by starting to develop this mind of equanimity, this mind that starts to see others differently. So we classify others as friend, loved one, stranger, or we classify people in different ways. People we don't like, or we're not so sure about. We have lots of ways we classify people: race, religion, lots of judgments of ways we classify people, and we do tend to act out in these very prejudices kind of ways. Again, always from an ego grasping point of view. So we're racist because it's compared to my ego, compared to that person. We might feel threatened by them. We might feel strange. They might be strange to us, or they might threaten the ego. So we become, it's racism or whatever the ism it is, it's from an ego point of view. Sexism or whatever, if it's from an ego point of view, I'm this, they're that, and I'm threatened, I want, I need, I'm in competitiveness, competition, I like, I dislike, but that's come from a very ego point of view. So from an equanimity point of view, we try and move away from that very dualistic us and them, me, hate or not hate, like, dislike. And so we try to get a more equanimitous mind state when we think of others. And then from that we can then build love and compassion for other. And the basis of doing that is to think that other and myself, we're exactly the same in a number of ways. So we're exactly the same in that we all suffer. You know, we all suffer sickness, aging, death. We all suffer not getting what we want and not having enough of what we want. We all suffer loss. So we all have to have those experiences. Every sentient being has that experience of suffering. We might not think they do, but they actually, if you think about it, there's not one sentient being who doesn't have that experience. So in that way we are equal. Our suffering is an equalizer. Also our wish for happiness, a wish that how we value our life, we value our happiness, and we value joy, and we value our relationships, and we value material comfort, we value our rights. And in that way, again, we're totally equal. Even insects value their life, value their home, value their whatever insects do. They have a life as well. They have a reason that they're there. So we all are equal in that. And as humans, we all have the same kind of minds with the same kind of emotions and the same kind of feelings and expressions and need for love and the desire for love. And we don't want to be harmed, experience pain. And humans and animals, we all have a mother, and that need for closeness and comfort. And all of us depend on somebody else. There's not, we're not an island. Even snakes and things like that, depend on other snakes, and we all depend on someone. So we can start to see how we are all dependent, how we are so much the same. Fundamentally, we are actually the same. And from a human point of view, it's our karma and delusions that are causing our own problems. So we cause it, we are the cause of our own suffering. And the being suffering over there is the cause of their suffering. Because they have a mind, they generate karma and delusions that perpetuate suffering. So when we can again reflect on and understand this as a basis of how we're equal, and if we can understand that other people suffer in the same way that we do, somebody else is suffering, mental and physical suffering is just like ours, and we don't want it. We know how it feels, how bad we feel, we know how we don't want it. The fear and anxiety that it brings in us. So we can feel that can be a basis of our compassion. When others suffering, we don't have to know them for that to be a basis of compassion for them. And when somebody experiences some great joy in life, we know that we'd love to experience great joy. So instead of jealousy, it can be a basis of great happiness and love, that we can have a basis. We're happy. We feel that we want that person to be happy, so we're happy that they're happy. And so then the feeling that we're equal in the way we are, our minds, our bodies, our desires, then can extend to love and compassion. So we don't have to know them. We don't even have to do anything physically for them. It's just that wish in our mind for them not to suffer, and to be happy for their happiness. And then we've extended our ability to love and feel compassion beyond our usual egocentric confines into a greater, at a greater level. And then so that love and compassion then becomes more powerful because you've extended it even further and beyond. And I think, we often feel this when there's great tragedies like bushfires and things like that, when there's an outpouring of collective grief and money comes, donations come in, and that is, we feel, we don't know people, but we can see their suffering and we automatically feel great compassion for them. So again, that experience, that is the feeling of compassion that comes when you see people suffering, when we see our community suffering. So again, it's extending that feeling. It's a very positive, it's a beautiful feeling when you feel that. And we can really feel connected to people at that point. So it's just developing those mind states rather than cultivating the more egocentric mind states. And it really does have to go back. You have to understand for yourself, is the ego, the selfish, self-cherishing mind bringing you happiness? And if the answer is no, then it's good to then try to reduce that down, reduce the emotional reactiveness, the different delusions that are playing out. And then you can understand that by developing more positive states of mind, it's going to be of benefit to you. You're going to be a much more easier person to get along with. Even just dropping your ego self-grasping, you're not even so worried about whatever others feel or think about you. But if you can generate love and compassion, you're going to feel that warmth and connection at a deeper level. So I'll just summarise in what bodhicitta is, because it's a different concept, and like I said, it's the mind. So the Buddha so people understand the context, the Buddha gains enlightenment by really being motivated to benefit all sentient beings, and recognising that the only way to really benefit sentient beings is to become a Buddha. So he's motivated on the path, or she, on the path to enlightenment through that benefiting of others. So once a Buddha is enlightened, they've got a lot more, their mind is omniscient, so they've got the ability to really help beings on the path themselves and free them from suffering. So it is a very profound and it's a very deeply spiritual kind of mindset. But again, by us thinking about how love and compassion within our own mind stream, in our own minds, and how that is motivated or turned out to benefiting others, not just yourself or not just your loved ones, but others in general, is a way of cultivating much more powerful and powerfully happier states within one's mind. And that is, if you're a Buddhist, that is the foundation of the path in that way. All right, so and so the idea of we develop these mind states of equanimity, and again, we have to contemplate on these things. If you really want to start to understand them, you have to really contemplate them and then test them out for yourself. Really understand how others, people do suffer, and in a way that suffering isn't different. My suffering isn't different from anybody else's suffering, because my mind and my wish to have happiness is the same. And so whenever I don't have happiness, when something harms me, I'm going to suffer. That's the basis of our lives, really. That's the basis of from which we live our lives. And it's when we hold on to that, the wrong ideas of what brings us happiness and the wrong ideas of what suffering is, that's where we actually increase our suffering. Because we often think, if I get that thing there, I will be happy. But that thing out there is what can generate more negative mental states, more delusions, more anger if you don't get it, more attachment if you're chasing it. So we get very caught up in thinking we all want happiness. We all want happiness, but we're a bit confused about what gives us happiness. So we go about creating the causes of our own suffering without understanding what is the cause of our own happiness. So in that way, that's where Bodhicitta is saying, wanting your own self-cherishing and grasping for something out there that you think is going to bring you happiness can cause you suffering, and that's what you've got to see. That self-cherishing, being motivated from a very strong ego point of view, is the cause of your suffering. And be motivated by a more open and non-harming and even love or compassion point of view is going to be the cause of your happiness. And again, so something to really think about and to analyse and to see if that's true. And again, bodhicitta is such a big thing. This idea of, again, we can meditate on bodhicitta, and it's lovely to meditate on bodhicitta by imagining all of beings around you and mentally giving love and taking away suffering and giving love. And that's our training of the mind. That's how we train the mind. We can train the mind analytically, but we can also train it through our meditations, and we'll do one tonight where we imagine all beings and we give out love. And that's starting to get our minds used to this idea, getting our minds away for that point of that meditation, away from thinking about myself and what I need to do to get there and do this and have this and not do that, and angry at that person or competitive with that person. And it gets your mind in the state of experiencing this idea of giving love out to all beings. Now, we're not actually doing it to actually beings, but in a way we are, because everything that we experience comes from our minds. So even imagining we're doing it, we're training our minds with this thought. We're training our minds, even for that point of view. We're developing these very positive mental states. And so even though you get out of your meditation and you can't help all beings, not possible at this point, but you can, you've trained your mind. Your mind has changed by that meditation. Your mind's softened by that meditation. Your mind sees a possibility through that meditation. And the mind's been loosened from that, even during that meditation, from those anxieties or those concerns. And that's why in Buddhism it's mind training. It's just training, little bit by little bit. There's no magic pill. Nobody gets enlightened overnight. It's all training one's mind, going into developing more and more positive states, And it's just that over time you start to get to know your mind a bit, and you start to see your anger arise, and you start to think, oh, is that from a very egocentric point of view? Yep, it was. Okay, just chill, I'll relax. I can see how I'm playing my part in that. I can see how my delusions were colouring my expectations of something, or I was heavily judging something because of what my ego expectation was. And the mind of love and compassion has no judgment expectations. A mind of love and compassion is totally giving out without this it's not transactional. So again, even if we can sit down and do that in meditation, during that meditation we're not doing a transactional, what can you do for me? Ego is always saying, what can you do for me? We're actually just giving out love and compassion, and that then lends ourselves, that love and compassion state is much more what our self, our natural self is. Our natural self is not egocentric. From a spiritual self, and on Buddhism it's the realization of emptiness will take you along the wisdom path, where your self arises not from a very self-cherishing, self-grasping point of view, but is just a naturally arising self. And the mind itself is naturally imbued with love and compassion. So we might just do a few minutes of the breathing meditation, and then we'll do the Buddha Shakyamuni meditation for people who've been here the other weeks. I've been doing that each week. But this week I've added a bit on it on bodhicitta. So it's extending that meditation out to have a bodhicitta aspect of it. And I'll just explain it now. So, and again, these are quite profound and quite deep Buddhist meditations, so it's fine if you don't understand it. And it doesn't matter if you don't understand it all, just go with it, really. Normally with this meditation we've been doing it with Buddha on the crown of our heads, and then the Buddha's been radiating out light and love, which is and it's been coming into us and filling us. Our bodies are totally purified, and that symbolises like our minds being totally purified of all of those delusions and karmic states. So again, we're trying to train our mind with this idea that our minds can be totally purified, totally removed from all of those defilements and negative states. It is possible. In this meditation then, we'll dissolve the Buddha into our hearts, which we've been doing, and I will lead this meditation, but I just wanted to explain a little bit to you so you have some context. And then the Buddha at your heart. So in Buddhism, the heart or the heart chakra is where the seat of the mind is. And it's where you develop your heart. So we think in Western terms the mind's very much in the brain. In Buddhism, the seat of the mind is much more in the heart, and this is where bodhicitta is really developed as well. And then the seed syllable, so it's in Sanskrit, it doesn't matter. You can just imagine it's hum, H-U-M. It's okay to do it in English. For people who are interested in Buddhism, you can look up the seed syllable hum, or we can come to me afterwards. And you just imagine at your heart, and if you can't get a clear visualization, that's fine. And then it's surrounded by a Buddha mantra. And so again, this is an idea of the mantra is like the purified, totally purified aspect of the Buddha's speech. And so when you think of moon and seed syllable at your heart, it's the purified nature of your mind and the purified nature of the Buddha's speech. And when you imagine the Buddha, you're imagining the purified form of the Buddha's body. And so that's really coming down into you, and then from that point of view, you radiate out light to all sentient beings. And that's your act of bodhicitta from there. So from your heart, you're radiating all that light, and it's touching all sentient beings. So that's the mind training of bodhicitta. So very, very, very profound meditation to do. And then we just bring that light back. You always bring the light back in. All the energy comes back to you. And then you dissolve that energy and yourself into emptiness. So almost like space. So you're still there, but what you're dissolving away is that ego self-cherishing mind. You imagine you dissolve that away. And when you dissolve away that ego self-cherishing mind, you're left with space. So when that goes, but you're still there, then you arise back up. So you're still there, but the ego self-cherishing mind has dissolved into space. And what you've been done, you've imagined that you've cultivated this absolute pure mind of love and compassion. So it's a visualization, but it's also just training the mind. It's putting those imprints on the mind. It's starting to get the mind thinking about those aspects or those qualities of the Buddha. And it's really about, joining with the Buddha's mind, imagining that and joining with the Buddha's mind, and so you can understand that those states are possible. The Buddha had a mind, and his mind became enlightened. You have a mind, and you're training your mind to experience those states. So maybe we'll just go straight into that, so we have some time for questions. Okay. So just sit yourself in a comfortable position. Make sure your spine is straight and your shoulders relaxed. And try and shake out some tension from your body. Maybe breathe out all your troubles and woes. And then we set the motivation. So our motivation for doing this meditation is through a bodhicitta motivation. So we wish to help all beings, including myself and all beings, to be free of suffering and to have the causes of happiness. So that's our mental intention and our motivation for doing this meditation. So we've already left some very positive imprints in our mind, and we've set the intention. So imagine now surrounding you are all sentient beings. So immediately to your left and right are people you love and people you know, including people you maybe don't like, or colleagues or neighbours, old friends. And then spreading out your neighbours, people in your neighbourhood, people in your city, in the country, all the people of the world, animals and insects, fish, all sorts of life surrounding you. And you can imagine all of the animals and insects in the form of humans as well. And they all spread out in all directions, way beyond what you can even see. So imagine above the crown of your head is the Buddha, just above the crown. He is seated on a lotus throne, which has a sun and a moon cushion. And these symbolize the three principal realizations of the path to enlightenment, which is renunciation, bodhicitta, and the wisdom of emptiness. The Buddha is golden in colour, and his body is filled with light that radiates out in all directions. He has black hair, which has a top knot. He has a beautiful face, and his eyes are half open and gazing out upon you and all sentient beings. He is seated in the full lotus cross-legged position, and he's wearing saffron-robed robes of a monk. His left hand is touching the ground, and his right hand is the gesture of meditative concentration, and he holds a begging bowl in his lap. And this is filled with the nectar of immortality, medicine, and uncontaminated transcendental wisdom. So the Buddha is very beautiful, and he smiles serenely with his compassionate gaze towards you and all living beings. Now feel his presence and remember his perfect qualities of bodhicitta and wisdom, and his willingness to help you, because his mind is imbued with bodhicitta. Therefore, he will always help all beings. So request Buddha to help you to become free of all negative energy, ignorance and problems, and to receive all realizations of the path to enlightenment. So the Buddha accepts your request. So you visualize that rays of light stream down from the Buddha, entering through your crown, top of your head, and completely filling your body, purifying you and all sentient beings of all negativities, and bestowing all blessings and realizations. So just hold that visualization with light going out from Buddha's heart to all beings and entering also into your crown, and completely purifying your body, your speech, and your mind. Imagine your body is full of light. It's hollow and full of light as Buddha's blessings from his mind bless your mind stream. Now, when your body is completely purified and clear, and your mind, your speech, the Buddha dissolves into light, and he enters through your crown, and he enters into your heart. And on your heart is seated on a white moon disc. It's a syllable hum, surrounded by the Buddha mantra, which is Om Muni Muni Maha Muniye Soha, and it circles in clockwise directions. So the Buddha enters the hum and the moon disc and the mantra, which symbolizes the Buddha's pure body, pure speech, and pure mind. And from your heart, light radiates out brilliantly in all directions from the hum and mantra rosary, reaching all sentient beings and purifying them completely of all negativities and obscurations. All sentient beings' light goes out from the hum and mantra garland at your heart. And all sentient beings are transformed into a blissful, enlightened state of Buddha. Now, all beings then dissolve into light, and then they absorb back into you and your heart. And then you transform into a state of emptiness where the ego-grasping mind dissolves. And then think how all self and all phenomena lack inherent existence. And just try and hold that state. Then out of that state of emptiness, you arise once again in the aspect of Buddha. And you feel great joy in your heart. And you rejoice because you have fulfilled the ultimate purpose of yourself and all sentient beings. And we dedicate, may the merits accumulated through engaging in this meditation become a cause to quickly attain the ultimate state of Buddha for the benefit of all sentient beings. Okay. When you're ready, you can come out of the meditation. So, did anyone have any questions or want clarification on any of that? Yes. Mm-hmm. I think all I know is that when you're doing the whole round, you can drop the Tayata. So you can start with that and then you can drop it to do a round if you're going to do lots of them. So, no, you preface it with the Buddha, I guess, and then you can drop it. But no, that meditation is too on the website, and Tara Institute website, so it is available, and that's how it does appear on that. But to be honest, I don't know. All I know is that when you do the round, you can drop it. Maybe a shortcut. But yeah, that meditation's available on the website. Yes.
I guess not so much about meditation, but I can ask a sort of question.
Yeah, sure.
Following the mind, imbuing the mind with intent and motivation to, I guess, putting a state of mind in which you think along the lines of compassion instead of through the ego. I was wondering if perhaps there's any sources of the mind or a quick suggestion for something good to imbue the mind with is as soon as you wake up, as I often find that is that just immediately start thinking through the ego in the first hour of each day.
Yep.
I guess my anxiety is down.
Yep. So I'll just repeat the question if people didn't hear it. How do we set the intention at the beginning of each day with love and compassion, rather than being, as soon as you wake up, you're already on a sort of an ego kind of thinking from that ego point of view? Firstly, I think it's really good that you notice it. It's the first point is actually noticing, because we don't notice. It is our natural state. We're innate. The ego grasping is innate. We're born with it. We die with it. It's not something we even think about, and we have to intellectually. It has to be intellectually pointed out to us. Through which is the Buddhist path, is to point it out. So even to realise that point is already a step, because you're already thinking, hey, look at me, I'm looking at everything from this really ego, selfish point of view, and everything's about me, and I'm happy to act from that point of view. So firstly, I think it's really excellent that you can reflect on that. So that takes that mindfulness. That's what mindfulness really is to look at your mind and see what's going on. Because, this is innate within us. We've all got it. And again, that's why we think of equanimity. We're all the same in that way. So, so that from that point of view, I think, so to even notice it and not to be rough and hard on yourself, it's innate, it's going to happen, that's what we do. And so you have to, like I said, train your mind. And so you're training your mind to even notice it. And so then you can work with that. Just work with where you're at. Okay, I've noticed it. Now I'll set an intention, even if it's for the next 5 minutes or 2 minutes, just to think, and in the psychology of happiness now is gratitude. That can be a first step. Gratitude is a very powerful thing. Or I'm just going to start thinking, set my intention to be as positive as I can today, or to think of others as much as I can today, or try not harm. It's the intent. From a Buddhist point of view, intent is really what karma is. If we have an intent to harm, then we will harm. And the harming comes through our voice and through our speech and our body. Like I can have a mental intent to harm somebody, but I can't harm them just mentally. I have to speak it, or I have to act it. So intent is really powerful. If I have the intent, and that's why Bodhicitta, even doing that meditation, during that meditation, your intent is, you set, that's why you always set a motivation, and that's why you always dedicate from a Buddhist practice point of view. You set the intent, and that sets your karma on the path of good. And then you dedicate, because what you're saying is, whew, I had a really positive intent, and I followed it through. And then I rejoice in that, and that strengthens that intent, that karma, to be more positive. You know, so conversely, if you have an intent to harm out of anger, I'm really angry that person did something to me, I'm going to make sure I'm going to tell them. So that intent comes first. You've justified it, you've decided on it, then you speak it or you act it out. And that's the harming. So, you know, and then you might go, great, I'm glad I said that, I'm glad I hurt that person. And then that's the celebration, so that's the negative karma. The karma is the intent, and then the acting out is sealing that karma. So, you know, it's just about so that's developing negative mind state, developing a positive mind state. And then we have the power to do that, slowly, slowly. And first is recognising where your mind is at, and then working where your mind is at. And that might be just some gratitude. It might be saying, you know, today when I see such and such, I'm just going to let it go. You know, you have to just work where your mind is at. Understand what's positive, understand what's negative, and just try and put some more white pebbles on the positive side and take away some black pebbles, or at least don't add more black pebbles to the negative side. Do you know what I mean? So you're weighing those karmic scales up a little bit. And in that way your mind's becoming lighter and more positive. Because the mind will be habituated. So, you know, there's lots of books on Dharma. If you go into Amazon or anywhere, you can look up compassion and His Holiness, Lama Zopa Rinpoche. There's many good books out now, and or the message, you know. But it's really just working where you're at, you know. And I think you just have to step it from now, work where you're at, try and see where to take that next. In that positive direction, gratitude or a bit of love, or just be kind to yourself, you know. But it sounds like you're doing well. Yes?
A good start is not to listen to the news.
Yes, that's so true. A good start is not to listen to the news. And yes, exactly. And it's true. You start to see how much is it just noise, negative noise, for our entertainment or for somebody needing an opinion. It's very discursive. It's very negative and heavy.
I think one of the mantras or prayers in one of the books that I read here, today I will not harm a single living being in the slightest manner.
Yeah.
I will do my utmost to benefit others in the best possible manner. Said 3 times is a pretty good way. It was a suggestion that seems to fit.
That's beautiful, yeah, definitely. And His Holiness says that, you know, start by that, I will benefit beings and I will not cause harm. And it's an intention, and it might be aspirational, but if you intend it, that's the first step. And you keep doing it, it's that training of the mind, setting the intention. Yes, Trevor?
You think that when you first wake up, what is a lot of demands get put on you by your own body itself? You've got to feed yourself, you've got to wash your body, you've got to do everything, then you've got to go to work, and you've got to drive in the car to go to work. So there's always like the demands of how do you control? How do you control? But if you're aware of it,
Yeah. Yeah, and they do say that's why meditation is recommended in the morning, because our minds are a bit more calmer because we've been in sleep, you know. Our consciousness has been a bit subdued during sleep. And so when at the end of the day it can be harder, and, you know, we're a bit more busier and a bit awake. So it's good. Morning is a good time to really look at your mind. before you get engaged in the busyness. That's carve out a few minutes. It's a good time. All right. All right, well, thank you, everybody, for your attention. Very nice meditations. Felt very nice anyway. Hope it was. All right, thank you. There's tea and coffee in the dining room if you'd like to stay, and a bit of cake. And otherwise, have a nice evening.